So, social justice is a complex issue, and there's a lot of varying opinions on every side of every facet of it. And I've been thinking about where the problem stems. Not just in the wake of finishing fault lines, which I recommended last week, but also in things like how did we get here? And I think I've traced it back towards something of a nexus, something of a critical, like, juncture event that kind of snowballed into where we're at now. And that is prohibition. That, if you aren't aware, Billy Sunday, who was a revivalist tent speaker type, but also a reformed drinker and a former baseball player. One of the strongest voices in this, but you also had the women's temperance movement, Kate Hatchett chasing men out of bars with an axe and things like. There's a lot of things happening there that culminated in an actual amendment to the Constitution being passed that made it unlawful to purchase, sell, or consume alcohol in the United States of America. It was a big deal because that is a very difficult process to go through, but they did it. And in the wake of that, we saw one of the most precipitous rises in criminal activity in American history. You have the mob, Al Capone, and just prohibition. Like, we wouldn't have NASCAR today if it wasn't for prohibition and the rum runners. Like, this changed the landscape of our country. And there's other factors that played into it. You have the Depression and the stock market crash, and you have the bank robberies that became so popular, and the rise of corruption in the government, and just a lot of things happened. But I think one of the major things that happens as well is that mainstream Christianity became gun-shy about social justice, because the main fuel behind the idea of prohibition was social reform, improving our society, eliminating an ill that was plaguing our country. And of course, the amendment of the Constitution doesn't change people's cravings, especially not to a chemical addiction. So it didn't change anyone. It made them worse. It sent them underground, which we should learn a lesson from. But the fact is, even though their hearts were in the right place, they went the wrong way about it. And so later, you have the sexual revolution and no-fault divorce in the 70s, and then you have these, Roe v. Wade in the 70s, and you have all these other things where you have this, our society was rapidly degrading in front of our eyes, and the church chose to turn a blind eye. And even with, despite how prominent of a place that the church plays in the social reforms involved with the civil rights movement, you'll see that it was primarily black churches that were leading that. White churches were either attempting to play it safe and neutral or even opposed it. Because, and you see this in stuff like the letter from the Birmingham jail, that just wait on us, we'll take care of it, don't worry, you're going too fast. A lot of the same things you tend to hear nowadays regarding the transsexualism, transgenderism, and feminism, and things that are in society now. Like, you hear them saying, this is too rapid, this change, like, we're not ready for it, this kind of thing. Deconstructing progressivism. You hear them saying these same things, that society is changing too quickly, we're not ready, just all of that. When instead, they should be holding the line of biblical truth, that you're made in the image of an infallible, unchanging, immutable God. That when you say that you were born in the wrong body, that when you say you were born with the wrong identity, you're saying God made a mistake, but God doesn't. God does not make mistakes. You were made the way you are because you are beautiful and perfect in that way. That there is no third, fifth, 19th, 25th options about this. There's two. God made man and woman. When a man should leave his father and mother and take a wife, and together they become one. Like that. This is what Christians need to be contending for. And that, yes, you don't need to accept necessarily the premise of biblical truth, but it's clearly evident. We're far enough in the process here to see that society is not better off denying the clear and evident scientific biological truths of gender and sexuality. It's not. That this is harmful, not just to children, not just to women, but to everyone, but especially to women and children. Especially harmful to them. We should not be sitting idly by and just hope that this stuff goes away. We need to get in the trenches, and one of the reasons it's so much more difficult to have a real discussion about this is previous generations ceded the land, just ceded the territory in the social or the common marketplace and held their tongues. And so this secular world, the evil of society, encroached on it and took that land. And now they own it. And now it's more difficult for us to be able to try and hold the ground of truth, because simply we've got to take some hostile territory back first. We need to learn a lesson from that. That if we stay silent now, they're going to encroach more, making it more difficult for future generations to try and hold the line of truth. And it's going to erode their strength, and erode their peace, and it's going to erode their ability to stand on truth. Now, they may have the same challenge level that we have, but that's better than making things harder. We see this in the Old Testament, where God tells the kings of Israel, listen, because of this, especially because of David's faithfulness, destruction's coming, but not until after your death. It'll affect your children instead. And it almost feels as if the king, Hezekiah and Jehoshaphat and Joash and Josiah, that received these messages, that they're relieved by it. At least it won't affect me. That's wrong. That is not godly thinking. I would rather suffer than my children suffer, is God-honoring leadership. Let me suffer so that they don't have to. Let me take pain so that they don't have to feel hurt. That's godly. And so we need to fight harder. We need to affirm real, affirm biblical, affirm truth, and fight for it, because literally lives do hang in the balance.